Hello there, Tempence. No, it's up to you, to be honest. It's worth taking a look at the tutorial from a few weeks ago. I've done the walk cycle in 2 stages. The first week I did a basic walk cycle, which was going through the basic steps, if you'll ignore the pun, or not, of how to put a walk cycle together. And that was useful, I think, into getting your first cycle moving and getting the character moving. Last week I then went and added a bit more complexity to adding some twisting to the hips and to the shoulders to make it look a bit more realistic. I also redrew, I can show you on here, of course. Also redrew the body on each drawing, or at least on 3 or 4 drawings, to see, so you can see a difference. Here we go. So you can see his legs moving backwards and forwards across the body, as well as his arms twisting in the shoulders. I need to come back and sort something out in a second with that, which I will do. So that was last week's tutorial animation day. We worked on that, and then this week I wanted to add some additions to the animation to make it feel a bit more realistic and to make it be less simplistic. So I've added a small blink there. I've added his fur bouncing up and down as he walks, just to show some follow through and a bit of overlap as he moves. And I was just about to change a cycle to change his arms, but I've just realised that I erased the original drawings for his arms. I need to go back and change them, so I will reload that and then change the arms again as a secondary option. Yes, Blifton. So you can stick with this today, Tempence, and see where we're going through today. But if you want to start working on your own walk cycle, then yes, you're better off going back 2 weeks to the start of the stream where we first did the walk cycle. I think you'll find that interesting and a good way to get into putting it together. Yeah, the connection thing, that was my internet at home. It just went off. Sometimes these things happen, can't be avoided, unfortunately. This time it wasn't my computer, it was just the internet going off, and because it went off it wouldn't reconnect back to the same stream, so I had to start a different stream, annoyingly. Hi there, Full Chain. Only a little bit late by about an hour. I've been working. We've had a few things happen. I went through the news and a bit of information, a bit of a chit chat, started working on the animation perhaps 20 minutes ago, and then lost my connection, and I need to go back a stage now anyway, so I'll do that in a second. Give everyone a chance to connect and then to continue from where we were. Possibly, I don't know, Tom. It's very rare that I do lose connection. I've got a really stable connection here. It works at a good pace usually for streaming. I've not had a problem with the connection during the streams. It's always been my computer that's caused the issues, so it's just yet another thing to get in the way. But we'll plough on regardless. Let me, as I just said, roll back here to the previous version, go to restore, back to with the blink, restore that, and let me try opening it again, and then try again with the arms and see where we get to with that. So what I forgot to do just before we lost the connection was I wanted to duplicate the 16 drawings before I started editing the arms, so that I didn't edit the arms on the original cycle. So I'll do that when we first come back on. I'm not sure of the best way to duplicate them, so I'll do it the way that I know, the simplest way. So let me open the same cycle again, make sure we've got everything here. So the first walk cycle and then the one with the blink. So let me just loop play that for a second so you can see where we've got to. So yeah, the character compared to the first week, it was a very solid character in the first week. It was an egg-shaped character, and as he walked there was no movement about him. It was really solid and bounced up and down. It had nice pacing. It introduced us to the 4-step cycle of the contact, the down pose, the passing and the up. So it's a good introduction to getting started, but it looked very solid. So last week I redrew this character and his firm moves as he walks around, so it looks more natural compared to the first week. And I wanted to add the extra mane going down the back of his head to give that extra bit of motion to him, and also to, as you say, to add the extra weight. I think so far, Tom, everything else is winning apart from me, but we'll keep coming back at it and see what we can do. It might take a few attempts, but I will get this finished. Yuli checks back again. You found us. Glad you found us. If ever we do lose connections, do jump back to the Discord, and I'll always share the link back in the live stream section, live stream channel. So according to the stats, we're only down to 4 people. We've done about 15 before the break. Hopefully the others will find us at some point. Fingers crossed. Let me just... Apologies for annoying people, but I'll just at everyone. Let me pop it back into the Discord. There we go. Yeah, I've heard things about the bell notifications. Doesn't always come through for some reason. I've got the bell notifications on for Dave's live streams, but I don't tend to get notified until the stream actually starts. I don't know if that's because he often starts without setting it up in advance, but even when he sets it up in advance, I don't get the bell notification all the time, which is really annoying, because what's the point of having a bell notification if it's not going to notify you? Yeah, I do try to post notification of the streams the day before if I can. So I did post about the stream yesterday about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So you had about 24 hours notice to help people to spot when the stream starts and to confirm that, you know, you can confirm the stream is happening. But that's also why I try to start off slowly in the stream, go through the latest videos I've got on there, bit of a chat before we start drawing, to give people a chance to join us later. Okay, so I want to do create a copy of the first 16 drawings. So let me highlight those 16. Press Ctrl C, go to the blank space, Ctrl V. And I'd like a duplicate of those 16 drawings. So let me move the plane markers around that section first. I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but the way I know, if I highlight all 16, put these onto 2s, and then I go in between the 16 drawings and press the D key to duplicate each one individually. And it's a very manual way of doing it, but I know it works. I could clone all 16 drawings into a different level and then draw with them, but I'd like them in the same level. So I'm now going to delete the original 16 frames from this section, which doesn't delete them from the drawing level, it just removes them from the timeline. So I'll select on them and tap the delete key. And then I just shuffle each of these images up together. And as I say, it's a manual way of doing it. I'm sure it's not the best way. I'm sure some of you might know a better way of doing it. So please do let me know in the chat if you know of one. And thanks for coming back, everybody. I can see we're up to 9 again. So we've lost a few people along the way. Hopefully they'll be able to join us at some point. So to shuffle these duplicates over. And as you can see, I've now got drawings from 20 up to 35. So the original 16 drawings are still safe over here, so I can't edit them as I did accidentally a second ago. So let's hit save. Save early, save often. So So using the eraser again, as I did a second ago, let's zoom in. I'm going to reduce the size a little bit so I can be a little bit more delicate around the edge of his body I'm erasing from. And I'm only going to do what we did just before the break, so people won't be missing anything if they're delaying joining us again. You're out walking and watching. Excellent. Oh, I bet it's lovely where you are. I believe you said you was down in South Wales. Go back to the brush, make sure I've got the pencil selected, and I can just tickle over the edges to make sure that stays rough looking rather than too solid. Just erase that darker area and colour over that. So we shouldn't see where the old arm was crossing his body. So again, I'm erasing the arm all but the very top part of where it connects to the body, so I can keep that same movement of the shoulders as he's walking along. So it should fit okay with the previous cycles of the animation. A bit of rain, yeah. Because at the minute here it's pretty sunny. So where the arm doesn't cross the body, it's really easy to just erase and doesn't take a second to do. It's where it crosses the body that there's more of an issue. Yeah, South Wales, in fact all of Wales is a really lovely part of the UK, and I love getting there as often as I can, which isn't often enough, unfortunately. Although I am actually going away in a few weeks, so the streams are likely to be cancelled for at least one of them, if not both weekends, because I'm going from a Saturday to a Saturday. I'm going down to Devon. Clicking save in between so I don't lose anything. Yeah, so I'm going down to Devon again, go and play on the beach, have a bit of break away from work and things. At the minute it's not too hot, Yulichek. I think we're sort of down to mid-20s or something. I mean, right now in here I'm really boiling. I always am on a Sunday. With the computer running and being in a small little office, it's really warm in here. So I'm always really warm while I'm doing this. But yeah, outside it's pretty nice weather, nice and sunny. We do get up to 30 degrees or so around this time of year, but we're say mid-20s at the minute, I think. Let's get rid of those two. I'll fill in the gap. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, so we've still got the walk cycle, you've still got the little dot at the top of his shoulder, so as he's walking, you can't see that with we were in black, but as you're walking you see the shoulder kind of moving backwards and forwards, ready to draw the other arm in. So yeah, I'm keeping an eye on the Discord server as well. So if you've got your animations to share as you work through whatever you're working on today, if it's the walk cycle or a little monster animation, then do share that if you can. Okay, so let's work out what we want. So the arms are swinging nicely as he's walking on the preceding cycle, and then when he hits this one, I want the arm to lift up and scratch his head. So thinking about the timing and how much space I've got, 16 frames. It needs a few frames to lift his arm up. I'd like him to have a little scratch and the same few frames to go down. So if we move up perhaps over 4 or 5 frames and down over 5, that leaves us about 11 frames to move around. So 5 frames is kind of a good way to move, an odd number to move, because then you can in between much easier. So we've got a drawing on 16, in between 21, so we'll draw on 23. So we need to do, if I turn on the onion skin, it'll help me judge the length of his arm, so his arm suddenly doesn't turn into Mr. Tickle Arm and go really, really long to scratch his head there. So 23, I want his arm to come up, and the question is he going to cover his face and go in front of him, like that? Or we're going to sort of break his arm and go behind him? I think for simplicity, let me bring it up. If I make a mistake here, we can always copy the original drawing from either the first 16 drawings or the preceding 16. So if I make a terrible mistake, we can just always overwrite it really easily. Kataro, hello there. Switch to 3D animation. Hey, whatever works for you. I'm not going to begrudge you doing that. Personally, my love is in 2D animation, as you all know, which is why I like OpenToonz and Tahoma. But yeah, no problem. Great to have you still with us. And most of the exercises that I do on these kind of streams can be done in any kind of software, 2D, 3D. If you want to, they can be done in stop motion animation. So yeah, it's great that you can still join us. Okay, so let's did it again. Use the stylus to click onto OpenToonz. We will get to the bottom of that, so just bear with me today. I think I hit save last time, so we're up to date still. So perhaps not the best advert for OpenToonz today, but these are the things you get. For free software, it's still out of this world. Okay, let's see what we've got on these frames here. One thing I did do this week as well, to help me when I was working on the other animation I was doing for Dave at Blended Planet, is I created a new room called Large Drawing to give me a larger drawing area. Because these rooms, of course, which are just layouts of panels, you can decide what you want in each room and create new rooms or delete rooms that are there. So make them work for you. Do take the time out that if part of what you're doing, you're constantly moving panels or you haven't got the right panels in there, then change it. Do so. Make sure you have. So I was finding that I was constantly having to move up and down to make more space to draw. So I created this large drawing room to have the X sheet at the top right, because often I wasn't changing frames, so I didn't need much space to see columns or frame numbers. So once I'd selected in the frame, that was kind of it. But it's available to go to previous frames or to look at the column next door. But then really to give you the palette editor is what the space is for, and the rest of the area then is drawing. And you can of course still go to a full screen drawing view by either pressing the shortcut key, which is the single backspace quote, but then you still get the toolbar at the top and the bar at the bottom. So instead of that, if you right click and choose full screen mode, you can see just the drawing area, and you can zoom in and you can have all the tablet for the drawing area and all of the screen to see what you're drawing on. So that's a good way to get to draw more at the full size that you want to draw at without panels getting in the way, especially if you're just doing sketching. You don't need to change brushes or colours or frames. You can still change frames with the arrow keys of course if you want to, and then when you're ready, just right click and exit full screen mode to get back to the standard view. So let's come back to this drawing screen because we do need the timeline in our view. It's a very close game, but we're getting there. We are getting there. We've got a cycle with the blinking. I've got the fur down his back moving. I've erased his arms ready to have them moving. We're getting there. We're fighting it. So let's see what we've got. Drawing 23, and let's show the onion skin for 16. zooming in. Let's see what we can do with this. So, choose the pen again. Pick the pencil tool. So I'm starting to get used to doing the same thing again and again. So it is building up that habit. So his arm is going to be coming in front of him. I don't want his elbow to be on the line of his mouth, because having lines crossing across other lines, it doesn't quite catch your eye properly of where the bend of the line is and which line is which. So if I drew his arm going to there and then there, that could be seen as his arm going up there and then to the right, because it joins on to where his mouth is, like that. So we don't want to do that. So I want him to scratch his head here. So if I lift his arm up there, like that. So it is passing his mouth. So really it wants to go either a bit further past or a bit further in front, so it's not touching the ends of the line. Okay, so we're back up to 16 concurrent viewers. Thank you for coming back to the stream. I'm so pleased you found it again after that small interlude. So if it's your first time here, or if you've not said hello yet, do say hello in the chat. Let us know who's out there. So I don't need the arm being too straight. Just trying to think where he's going to reach to. So let me try that. Hey, Tony's back. No, not yet. You'll know when I'm fetching tea. I've got the break planned, ready to do that, because we've got some art and animation that's been shared on the Discord server to also share in the kitchen scene when I take a break. Although I am getting a little low for a drink, so I will be wanting to do that soon. Vikrant, hello! Good to have you with us. Steve! Hi, welcome back. I did see a comment earlier from you. Sorry, I don't think I actually shouted out to you, but welcome back. Glad you managed to join us again today. So let's just see about this. Just trying to see where his arm is. Is that going to be a crazy place? He doesn't really have an elbow as he walks, so maybe he should have a curved arm rather than the straight one. And rather than going to the back of his head, maybe just more near the side of his eyes, perhaps. So what are you up to today, Steve? You doing some more drawing, did you say? Just see where the length of his arm is, so I can try and keep the same here. Because if I draw that line, then use the selection tool in freehand mode, I can grab that just temporarily and then just rotate it round, and if I move it to where his shoulder is, that's the sort of length line I need. So yeah, to the side of his eyes could be okay. So let's hit undo a few times and then draw a line, make sure I've got the right palette entry there, from his shoulder up to where the side of his eyes are. Okay, so as I said, we'll go in between and then we can show the frames 16 and 23. And as we did earlier, let's turn on Shift and Trace. I'll hit save there. So the Shift and Trace, click in edit mode. I've got the previous drawing selected here, which is the red drawing. And let me change my onion skin to show drawing 16 in frame 32. I'm on frame 34, and also let's show frame 36. So the red one is frame 32. You can tell by the red box around it. So let's move the red one over the current drawing. You can see the eyes are aligning in the top of the head there. Then go to the following drawing, which is the green. Place that in the same place, which is the two positions now, the arm at the beginning here and then moving to there. So I need to add my in-between. Thank you, Vikrant. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I'm glad it helped. Really, I'm glad it helped. This is why I started the channel originally, because for me, I couldn't quite find the tutorials that I needed, and the ones I did find some are extremely useful, really useful, but the presentation of them wasn't quite what I was after as well. So I thought, well, if I don't like what I can see, why don't I have a go, make a few tutorials and see if some people find them useful. If they don't, I'll just stop, nothing lost. And a few people found them useful. I got some lovely comments back, so I've sort of just continued with it. So it's good to hear they're still helping, so thank you for that. It's K-Lightis here. Have I ever used Critter? I certainly have. I still don't know how you're supposed to say it, if it's Critter or Creator or something else, and I changed the way I say it myself. But yeah, I use it all the time. I use it to do the thumbnails for every video. So I've been using it for 3.5 years since I started the channel. So I use it for that, and occasionally for the odd background or other drawing that I want to do. I'd like to use it some more and have a bit more practice at just doing some drawing away from animation. I think would be really useful. But yeah, great program. Absolutely, always recommend it. Carita, is that right, Tom? Carita, yeah. I've heard so many different pronunciations, but the way it's spelt, I can't help but say critter, as in like a little animal, a little critter. Swedish, yes, I think I heard that somewhere before. Where's Maria? She's away today. She said she couldn't make it today. I can't remember what she's doing. I thought it might be somehow, Tom. Yeah, she said she wouldn't be able to make it today, unfortunately. But hopefully she's back again next week. So what are you up to today, Tony? You still working on some more videos or drawing? I've still got to catch up with your latest video about the four-legged walk, was it? I can't remember what it was. I'm sure it was a four-legged character, or was it 6? A number of legged character. That's 6-legged. It was 6-legged character. Designing part 1 of 4. Yeah. That's definitely my playlist to get to at some point. I think, to be honest, for me, I really like 2 things. I think it's probably more, to be fair, but two things stand out about your channel. One clearly is animation, and the other one is the design. It is the design of your characters, the little monsters, the way they look. And when I've seen you doing the animations in your videos, you draw them so effortlessly. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to that. Yeah, traditional as well on paper. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I really can't wait to get to see that. Six-legged and traditional, absolutely. Thank you, Tom. She's doing a play, is she? Right. Yeehaw, Creator. Okay. I quite like just Critter, but yeah, Creator. Yeah, great program. Yes, I don't know if. Yeah, it's not really made for photo editing. I think you're right. It's made for painting and drawing more so. But I do, same as you, I use it for photo editing. So all of my recent videos, if I go to my room with my little drop-down projector and show last week's video, for instance. So this was done in Critter, whatever. This was done in the program, and I cut out a picture of myself, coloured around it, made a few edits, brought in the text and the backgrounds, added a little bit of a shadow behind my hand on the piece of paper that I'm holding and that kind of thing. So just some basic editing is all I do in it generally. But it's a really accessible program. Right, where are we with this chap? Let me use the mouse to click back so I don't break OpenToonz. I don't know if you've had this problem, Tony, but I mentioned it earlier. If I click to a different window, like Google Chrome to join a conversation in Discord, then when I come back to OpenToonz, if I click in the program anywhere with the stylus, it closes on me, it crashes. I've got to click into it with a mouse to stop it from crashing. Have you ever had that? So I need to consider ease in and ease out. So I'm going to start the arm here where it's hanging down. And it's just been swinging forwards. So you can see sort of the distance it's swung over. There we go. And it needs to continue swinging around to move up towards the top. So I think I kind of will go almost halfway, but I'll go slightly less. Let me draw the hand in there. I didn't draw his little hand. So let me add his outside 2 fingers. There we go. Yeah, I can't wait to see it, Tony. Really can't. So I can see his shoulder here. So let's draw that hand. Again, I don't want it to pass through there to cross the end of the mouth if I can help it. So it either needs to go below or above that line there. And also having the hand, the length of the arm where the hand touches the side of his body isn't ideal. Ideally it should be outside the body or inside. But touching it is a little bit naughty for an animation there. So let's draw this up here just before where the mouth is, and then draw the hand there just outside of the length of his body. So really the arm is kind of stretched a little bit there. Then again in between the drawing before and after. So let's see the shoulder here and the hand like that. So we go from there to there to there, and in between 21 and 23. Okay, Tony, thanks. There was already a bug report. I mentioned it on one of the channels. I think it's on the OpenToonz Discord. And I think it was Bmuth said he'd logged a report a year ago, still waiting for it to be fixed. So I added my comments and then tagged Shun Iwasawa, who's the main developer for OpenToonz, who very kindly replied back before the next day, so within 24 hours, said he tried it out himself and couldn't repeat it, which is unfortunate. And then Malang John also took a look and couldn't repeat it. So it feels like something very local to my graphics card or my tablet drivers or something. So I just need to remember to use the mouse to click back into the program. Ordinarily it's not a problem. If I'm in OpenToonz, I'm just in OpenToonz. But during the streams, I often click back into Discord to join the chat. So it exacerbates the problem on these streams a little bit. No, me either, Full Chain. Anything past 2 legs. 2 legs is still fairly new for me, to be honest. But I've not gone anything past yet. So let's bring this hand up here. Again, don't want it touching the eye, so I'm going to bring it to the front. Now the fingers aren't quite open enough there. So let's see. Yeah, okay, so that moves quite quickly there. Hit save. So that's up to 23. That is joining in the wrong place, I can see. I'm looking at where the arm joins onto the body. Because the previous one is kind of in the middle of the tooth. The following one is in the middle of the tooth. And the one in between, it was halfway. Have a look there. Tooth, it should be swinging forwards and then backwards. So it's between the tooth, there. So I need to bring it back there from here, like that. Try and get it to join onto that line. There, good. Oh yes, I saw that eight-legged character. Yeah, I saw the picture first, and I assumed it was a four-legged character at first, like a dinosaur. And I think that one there, the arm's gone a little bit shorter, and that needs to come a little bit further back as well. Let's see how that is. Okay, so there. Okay, so I want him to sort of scratch his head a little bit and then bring his arm back down again. So let's just show the onion skin for that and adjust the height of the character by checking where adjusting the previous drawing, using shift and trace, and then I place it over it. I can more easily see where the length of the hand goes to and where he's going to move compared to the previous drawing, even though it's actually moving up and down. So it starts here because I've got his shoulder position in there, and I'm going to have the hand moving just a little bit first. Actually, that's probably too little with the bounce. And I'm going to do this straight ahead. So again, go to edit, the shift and trace, place that in the right place, and then turn off the edit, and then we can adjust this a lot easier. And it might take a few attempts to get the movement quite looking right. That's fine. I'm just keeping an eye on the final position because I had 5 frames for his arm coming up, so I want 5 for them going down as well. So I'll just keep moving to each drawing straight ahead, editing the shift and trace so I can see where his arm's going to be. Drawing it in, and then moving to the next frame. So the shift and trace is really, really useful. It's a great feature. It's something I forget to use quite a lot of the time. Hit save so I don't forget. Started in '87. Great year. Okay, so I want 5 frames for his arm to come down. So I've got one more frame we can move for this. So that's scratched. So let's put one more with his arm coming up. I think I've been shrinking his arm all this time. So I might need to go back and adjust those. We'll come back if necessary. Really, Amar? Me too. Okay, so the next set of 5 frames is going to be his arm coming back down. So let me take drawing number 1 and I'll copy that to the end so I can see where we're going to end up as. And then let's do the 5 frames before as we did a second ago. Let's adjust that to place it in the right place. And then we'll 5 frames before his arm at the top, then in between 31. Let's add 31 in as well. So let's see. It goes back 30, 31. Look at the previous. let me adjust it for the previous and do that one first. Okay. So his hand's there. And then we'll bring it to here. As I say, we'll see how the movement goes to whether we need to adjust that any further. Okay, so 34 is going to be halfway, as we said a second ago. So let me adjust that one first, changing the following drawing. There we are. Turn off the edit, and then the arm will be part way down, but maybe not as long as Mr. Tickles. And again, being careful not to have it cross where the mouth is. 35, I can do that directly in between those two. So let's adjust the previous and the following so they all line up, and then we're looking directly in between them both. Turn off the edit. Amar, you're absolutely not alone. I've said this so many times, and I've heard this from so many people that have either joined in the Discord server to have a chat with us, comment on YouTube videos, or join the Udemy course, where they said they wish they carried on with animation, or they've not done anything for 20 or 30 years and they want to come back to it. It's such a common thing, and it's kind of what I did, really. Not done any animation for a very long time, and then came back to it again about 4 or 5 years ago. So yeah, it's really common, and it's great for me to see people that are 40, 50. The other day, I had a 70-year-old comment on my Udemy course. He was working through it. So yeah, it's really good to see people of all ages joining in. So it's a great hobby to get into. And I imagine Tony would say it's a good career to get into as well. Hey, Dave's back. Hello, Dave. You missed out, I think, Dave, on a bit of an apocalyptic crash. My internet went down at home entirely. It wasn't the computer playing up, it wasn't OBS. The whole internet went down. Suddenly my screen went blank. Mrs. T shouted from downstairs. She was watching football, and I went downstairs, and the router had crashed or broken or something. So I had to reconnect with a brand new stream again. So that was fun. It's always fun when that happens. Okay, so the arm's coming down, so 33. Let's bring that up. So I'm using Shift and Trace at the minute, Dave, which is really useful for this sort of situation. So I can use the onion skin while my character is still moving across the screen in different places. I can line them over each other, shift the pictures, and then you can use it to use the onion skin to place parts of your character in the right place. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear people's backstory of why they're in animation and how they came across it again. Okay, almost there. That's his arm going down. Then a previous drawing is simply in between those two as he starts to move down. So again, we'll edit it, make sure they're all placed directly over each other for the previous and the following drawing, and then we can draw his arm in with it ease out from that first position. Yeah, absolutely, Amar. It is. I think Dave said before when you've spoken about things, just aim for one, try and complete one. And I couldn't agree more. Completing a project compared to just working on lots of projects is so satisfying, I believe. I've not yet completed a decent length project. I think, Dave, you call them toy animations kind of thing, for smaller animations. And for me, I'm enjoying that. It's helped me to learn a lot of what I need to learn for animation and about workflow and process, but also because of the videos I make on the channel for training, it's useful for those. But I'd love to get into a proper full project at some point. So let me just see if I've missed any there. I think that's about right. We just hit loop play. Yep, so his arm comes up. He has a little scratch. There, that's the one. I can see one of them, his arm's looking much shorter. So I wanted to change that. Yeah, so would I, Emma. I'd love to see some of your projects come to completion and being birthed. But then same for everybody. I've seen lots of animations from people, both short and long. And it's great to see them all coming together. Okay, so that is the little head scratch. Let me bring the play marker back to the beginning. Let's take a look at those three stages. So we've got the basic walk cycle first, a walk cycle with a blink, and then the little head scratch at the end. So let's just zoom in a little bit and loop play those. Yep, it is what it is, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing I was after there. Just add a bit of something different in the movement. So that's my tea finished. So I think next what I'd like to do is to add colour to this, which shouldn't take too long. Although I should really have done that before I duplicated this 3 times, but I think we can use copy and paste to make that go a little bit easier. Yep, I'm happy with that. Okay, so I'm going to take a short break, grab myself a fresh cup of tea, and then we'll come back and add some colour to this. So I'll see you back here in about 5 minutes. See you then. Hello and welcome back. Ooh, just a quick break, just to get things ready, grab a cup of tea and let's start on the next section. I see we've been chatting while I've been away. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing some of your completed projects, Amar. Can't wait to see them out there. Right, where are we? So we're going to add some colour. So a few different ways we could do this, but because I've used a pencil for drawing, then the bucket fill probably won't give us as clear a fill as we'd like it to. I have used standard raster, I believe, is the blue. So let's right click, choose level settings. Yeah, it's a standard raster level. So once I've filled the colour in, I can't adjust it after the fact. So I need to try and get the colour correct at the very beginning. I really like the Simpletons. I love the design of those. Yeah, love to see that. Yeah, do share with us, Amar, as you work through your Joe Sack series or other series. As you know where we are on the Discord. Love to see them. So we could either add the fill on this current level, or we could add a separate level behind and change the colour on there. And because I'll be drawing this by hand rather than using the bucket fill, let me show you with the bucket fill. Let's add a colour. Just pick a kind of a bright colour and then hit fill there. You can see at the edges it's not going to fill in very clearly because it's not a solid line. If I undo that and fill inside the tooth or inside these spots, you can see it just doesn't look very nice. So bucket fill isn't the way to go with this kind of animation. So I'm going to undo that colour addition, hit save. Before I go any further, let me add another backup to this. Give this a name of with head scratch. Make a copy, look in the backups folder. We can see lots of backups in there, so we'll delete all the ones that aren't named because we've got this current scene backed up. So now we've got that saved to continue. And I clicked on OpenToonz again. I have to go to a different program, so let's reopen that. Oh yes, I forgot about that, Amar. You ought to really share that on the Discord if you're comfortable doing so. The fan art of Salt and Light. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see that. I was thinking of doing a similar thing myself, Dave, next week possibly, as part of my current series of videos. So you may have missed it at the beginning, I'm not sure, where I showed my last video, which was about downloading new versions of Tahoma from the pull requests. And then next week's video will be how to use the pull requests of the separate fills or the fills separate to the line drawings. So that's next week's video. And then following on from that, I was thinking of doing a kind of a speed paint of one of the Salt and Light characters, maybe, and showing how I might use the fills on a separate level with that drawing. So that's kind of half on my mind to do. Let's click back into OpenToonz with the mouse, and then we can use the stylus the rest of the way. Okay, so let's create a smart raster level, or a Toonz raster level. It is here on OpenToonz. Name the column so I don't forget. Hit save also so I don't forget. And then I'll use the paintbrush tool. I'll add a new colour. And I'll try and choose a similar colour to the ones I used in my thumbnail for the video. So I've got that up here on a separate screen. So I just kind of used a greyish kind of colour for him first. But let's bring him more towards kind of a pink or orange. And this is why I used a Toonz raster level. So I can fill in with the colour and then adjust it later and change the colour once I can see him on the character. I think it's much easier to see the colour changing, to pick the right colour when it's actually on the character, rather than when it's in a tiny little square in the palette box over there. So what we could try and do, something that I know you did, Tony, rather than using the standard brush, let's look at the raster brushes. and try and pick one with a bit of roughness to it. Let's just click on a couple of these and see what happens. So the hatch brush. I don't know if this will work for this tool, or if I need to go to the brush tool itself. Yeah, that's the one. Right, so that's what that does. I'll undo that. Let's try stipple. No. We don't want fur. Don't think we want fur. No, that's not going to look right. So let's have a little experiment with some of the brushes in here. Why not? That's for blending, so blending doesn't need a colour for that first. About the charcoal. Let's make this larger. Now it's going to make the spots larger, so that's not useful. I really need to take some more time on these brushes to find one that's more appropriate. No, that's going to be too small. So let's take a look a bit further down. Long grass, short grass, textured ink, good for lines. I love the pencil brushes. Some of the paint brushes there. About one of these air brushes. No. There's another fur, but I think that's furry around the outside of the line, yeah. We'll find one in a second. Failing that, we'll use just a standard brush. So I've got this one for the splatter. No, that could be good for adding colour on top. So maybe we need to add a texture on top of the colour rather than painting with texture. And again, when you make them larger, often the texture is larger as well, which doesn't help. So I've got all these raster brushes, and I use very, very few of them. Maybe. Can I adjust the colour of this? I can. This is a possibility. It is quite dark. We'll paint the his eyes and things on the top afterwards anyway. Yeah, I've not. I think I subbed to Full Chain. I took a look at your channel a while back. I really liked what was there, but I can't remember what I last saw. That's not a bad colour. Now it's quite light. And again, we can change the colour later. Yeah, let's try that. See if that gives us too much of a flickering in the colour. Animation Overload, hello, good to have you with us. I'm really well, how are you doing today? So he is such a simple character here that I can just draw around the edge and then just work the way to the middle, I think. And it shouldn't take too long to colour this all in. Just need to make sure I've got the same kind of amount filled in for each drawing so it doesn't suddenly go light or suddenly go dark. So yeah, I'll do this for the first 16 drawings, and then for the next 2 duplicates the position of the monster is exactly the same, so I can use copy and paste to take the colour over, so we'll see how well that goes. So I don't want to take too long on this because it's quite a boring thing to watch, I know. But I want to get this as smoothly done as I can without too many gaps looking obviously gappy. Now the spot size is quite large on here, so it might not be ideal, but it's not a bad start. Good, good to have you with us today. So I'll paint this over the first 16 monsters, then we'll take a look at how it moves and how well it looks. And if it doesn't look good enough, we'll just remove it. And if it does, then we'll add in the eyes and the spots and his little tooth, and then copy it over the other two repeating cycles, and that'll be the colour added. So I'm sure there is a better brush I could have used than this for the fur, but I wanted something with texture where you could see a bit of a gap through the back, and I might have to actually add in a solid white background. Otherwise, when we do the actual background, you'll see through to the sky and the ground. And we don't want that, because he's not a see-through character. So almost there. That's 10 done. Only 6 more to go. And obviously do take your time more with your colouring in your cartoons. I'm wishing a little bit because I'm on the stream, more so than if I was just doing this in my own free time. So if you're still there, Dave, have you had a chance to take a look at scene 601 yet that I sent through? Yes, absolutely you could, but I was sort of concerned about the gap around the edges if I did a bucket fill first. So I was thinking of doing using the vector auto close auto fill option, and I can just draw a single line around the outside for each one and have a solid line with a fill, but we'll see how that looks. Get rid of that, that's gone far too far outside. Okay, no problem. If you take a look at the scene as I've got in that I sent over, I did put your original sketches to the left. So if you zoom out and look to the left, I've got your original sketches with the timing that I took from your stream. So I took a look through the stream towards the end where you just played that one scene, and I could see then how long each image was supposed to last. So I tried to keep the same timing. I did actually add a couple of frames at the very beginning. Bring it down a little bit. And that was to give Vespar time to come onto the screen, because you mentioned how he turns up on the left hand side of this screen at the very beginning of the scene, but there wasn't really any time for him to appear before Golek started to do his thing. So I added some extra time for that. So you'll see what I mean. Yeah. So let's put the timing down to the first 16 frames and just look at that on cycle to see if that looks far too messy or if it's okay. So I want it to look a bit messy to kind of simulate his fur moving, which reminds me very much of an old cartoon back in the 80s, Rhubarb and Custard, which was drawn using felt tip pens, and they kind of left this rough texture behind and had a dance as the character moved. So I was looking for any large gaps now, because I quite like that. You skip through the frames and add some of those in. Yeah, my only concern really, Dave, was the fact that you've been working through some of the older scenes and bringing up the quality, adding some of the extra hand-drawn animation you've been doing, fixing up the backgrounds and that kind of thing. And obviously you've been drawing this for nigh on a year now, whereas I've not really done much drawing for Salt and Light, so my characters might not look quite as nice as yours do. So that's kind of where I am at the minute. But yeah, you take a look and let me know what you think. But either way, I really enjoyed doing it. It was a lot of fun. Working with someone else's characters and just trying to add in the movement and the style that that you sort of put together. So get the outside of them there. And I'm using the cursor keys, the left and right cursor keys on my keyboard, to quickly skip between the frames. Add a bit of colour more where there's more gap, so you don't see huge gaps in his fur, but leave some. Yeah, not trying to be disclaimers, but I know what you mean. But there are reasons of why it is the way it is. No, I'm really proud of what I've done. I'm really happy with it. Almost there. One more to go. I need to add his fur on the mane at the back of his neck. Lots of gaps in that one. Hit save. Let me just mute myself for a second and hide for 1 second. And I'm back. Suffering a little bit with allergies, so I don't want to be sniffling too much on camera if I can help it. Okay, so let me duplicate that brush, hit save, and I'm going to choose the same raster brush, which was that charcoal, I believe. There, it's already selected, and now I can make this a little bit darker and want to make that smaller and add some filling on his mane back here, which I want to be a separate colour to the main body. And again, I don't want to be taking too long on this, so I'll just quickly skip over it. Yeah, that latest scene you've worked on, Dave's come out really well. Speaking of disclaimers, where you was talking about which side of the body people were walking past and that kind of thing, as you said, all that sort of thing people won't notice. I think it's perfectly fine and looks really, really nice. I like the hand-drawn stuff you've been doing recently, compared to kind of like the cutout type of animation you're doing, which is kind of more what I did in the scene I was meddling with. Okay, almost there with the mane. It could be the monster fur. It is very long. But yeah, the last thing you want is for me to be sniffling all down the microphone. It's bad enough with all my best desk banging that I do. And a little bit here, number 13, 14, 15, and finally 16, where it starts to move up again. Okay, let's hit save and loop play on that. Yep, so I need to change the colour because that's quite dark. They're both quite dark there. So that's quite orangey. Bring that down. This one I'd like a bit lighter. So let's bring up the value a bit there. So I love using these sliders. Rather than clicking on the colour wheel at the top right here, the sliders just above my head, there-ish, to adjust the colour a tiny bit at a time rather than trying to do it through the wheel. For me, that works a lot easier. So what I want to do now, I'll name each of the colours in the colour palette so I don't forget which one is which. So the first one is his, I'll call his skin, but it's his main fur. And the next one is his mane, M-A-N-E, I think. Close enough, I'll recognise what that is. We hit save. Yeah, I love the plastic tool, Dave, for moving things around, but like I say, it kind of gave me some issues as I was moving the body with the plastic tool, but the arms are drawn separately. It kind of felt a bit much, but I think you can probably see that in the final outcome. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the hand-drawn. I love hand-drawn animation, personally. This is why I'm doing these kinds of little animations here, for a bit of hand-drawn practice. I've said before, I'm not great for actual drawing skills. That'll come with time, but the actual process of working through hand-drawn, frame-by-frame animation is much more satisfying to me. Thanks, Full Chain, thank you. Okay, so now I've got those two, let's add the other colours in very quickly. So we need the eyes. Let's name these so I don't lose track of what I'm doing. We've got the spots, and we've got his tooth, which shouldn't take much to do. So the eyes, in the thumbnail, I had them kind of a fluorescent green kind of a colour. The spots had kind of an orange colour, but we'll see how that looks in a second. And the tooth was a dirty sort of yellow colour, but we'll see how that looks. So again, let's hit save before we start. Yeah, it'd be good for cleaning the sink. I'm all for that. I don't think he'd be so happy to do so, but I'd be happy with that. Let me bring this down and try and use the paintbrush tool. Let me change this to lines and areas. Yeah, to make sure I paint over the fur colour, but because it's on a separate level, it's not going to paint over the pencil lines of the character. Thank you, Amar. Yes, exactly. I mean, last week when I first started this, I'd sort of showed what I was trying to do. The previous week, make sure I've hit save. The previous week, I drew kind of an eggy character. So I started off with a basic circle and just topped him off with an eggy shape. And that was the character. It was fairly solid, didn't move much. And then this week, I drew two circles together. My system's going a bit slow. I just curved them off to join, just to create a basic shape, but I wanted more flexibility, so I wanted them to be taller. So the idea was to try and keep a simple design, but also to have him complex enough to look like a proper rounded character. Okay, so let me grab my keyboard and go frame by frame and quickly throw the ink using the paintbrush on each frame, which shouldn't take too long. If I can stay roughly within the lines. And although he's moving up and down and I've sort of redrawn him for each frame, I did trace over them rather than drawing them as a separate character each time. Even though I created him as a simple character that you could redraw, I wanted to avoid that shape-shifting thing that you get when you draw them different sizes and different frames. I'm not sure which commercials you mean there, Amar. I'm suspecting I've not seen them in this country. But even here, where I've traced the character, I can see the size and shape of, say, his eyes are changing on each frame a little bit. They're staying close enough to look okay. So I wanted the eyes to stand out and be a little bit devilish rather than just, you know, plain white, human looking. It's quite bright. I might adjust it a little bit, but that's why I used a Toonz raster level so I could adjust it. So frame 1 again. Let's get back to these spots. Make the size a little smaller. Yeah, Sesame Street, absolutely. Yes, thanks, Dave. I missed that question earlier. I thought that all customizations you change for a palette entry were saved in that palette. So now I've added these brushes here. If I go to the settings and change any of the settings for one of these, I thought they'd be saved with that palette entry, but I could be wrong. I hope not. I hope they would be saved. So I'll quickly do these spots. They don't need to be exact, but again, I'd like to try and get them as close as I can. And I could zoom in, might make it slightly easier, but then it also means I've got a large area to cover on the tablet. So I think I'm fine at this zoom. Oops. There we go. So I wasn't really intending to add colour to this little fella until, again, at the end of the stream last week, I changed the thumbnail to upload for the stream, and I didn't want to leave it just as a pencil drawing with no colour inside, plus the background of the thumbnail had colour, so you'd have seen through his body, you wouldn't have seen how he looks so well unless you had their own background. So I coloured them in for the thumbnail, and then when I did that, I decided then I wanted to colour them in today. Oh great, Amar, thank you. I'll take a look at that. Thank you for sharing those. So let's just add his tooth. Yeah, that's too big. I need to go smaller, and let me zoom in a little bit. Add it in as a little triangle, and I am in a new level in a column that's behind the sketch column, but you can see through the pencil to the yellow, so you haven't got solid lines to draw within. So I need to try and be as careful as I can to keep it within there and draw a triangle without going over the pencil too much. But we'll see how well I did in a second. So obviously these little monsters that I've been doing the past few weeks are based on Tony Gaddis's little monsters that he leaves always in pencil without colour. Apart from he did that little animation with the rain that he coloured in, which looked really good, really smooth as always, as you'd expect from him. Okay. Yes, that's what I thought, Dave. So it is in the TPL file. Yeah, so if I grab my project folder. Yeah, that's fine, as long as you've changed one setting and see that it persists. So if I go to the extras, not the extras, drawings, isn't it, we said? Yeah. Always get those two mixed up. It's really annoying that there are two folders there for the drawings. So yes, you've got the TLV, which is the Toonz level file, TLV, and TPL is Toonz palette file. So that should save the settings for this scene and for this level. So if you use this level in another scene in the same project, it should use it. And if you import the drawing level to a different project, it should pull over the palette file as well then, I'd hope. But yeah, I think it's worth doing exactly as Dave did there and doing experiments. Create a dummy project, do some changes, save it out, and then see what you get in a related scene or a different project. Okay, so let me hit loop play on those 16. Yeah, the colours aren't wandering off too much. I can see a couple of issues with the drawing of the tooth, but that's fine. I'll ignore that. There's some flutter around the outside of his body, which is kind of supposed to be kind of his fur, but we could tidy that up if we wanted to. I'm happy not doing so mostly. Around the bottom here I can see a few things, but that's okay. Dave's saying that OpenToonz brush presets borders on useless. I have used them a little bit, and I can see that they could be useful, but I don't use them. So that tells me they're kind of a little bit useless, but they feel like they could be useful. So if you went, for instance, to the brush tool, I know for drawing salt and light, for instance, you mentioned, Dave, that your brush size goes between 2 and 4, your hardness is about halfway through, and you adjust the smoothness to whatever is necessary and helpful. So I could save that if I wanted to as a custom brush. So for people that don't know, at the far right here you can see some presets. I think this is what you're referring to, Dave. So at the minute there's none in there, but I've set up some values here, and if I hit plus I can give this one a name. So I can call this Salt and Light. That's fine, just Salt and Light brush, and then press OK. And now that appears in this drop down of presets. So then if I wanted to draw a different project or a different sort of character, maybe I'll do the backgrounds, and I have them with a style of a fixed width of 6 pixels. The hardness is 100%. And I always have smoothing of about 15, say. I could add that, and I could call that now background lines. Okay, so as I'm changing between my background lines and drawing them of pixel size 6 with some smoothing, I can then change the salt and light lines for the characters and draw them with a different thickness and hardness and that kind of thing. So it feels like it ought to be useful, but I've not currently found a use for it. But I've not been working on a large project as you have, so maybe it could be useful for you. I kind of suspect not. You know what you're doing with the interface. Yeah, for the Marpaint brushes, I think the settings as you've been showing in here are definitely going to be more useful to change. You showed one for your favourite paintbrush the other day where you changed the radius. Was it this radius? I thought it was towards the bottom. Elliptical dab angle, you changed it to 0 or something to make it a completely round brush rather than that angled ellipse size brush. So having those settings saved feels like they could be more useful. Okay, so that's the first batch of colouring on him. I'm happy with that. Let's copy them to the other drawings. Got duplicates over here for the blinking cycle and then the scratching the head cycle. But the basic body shape and the position of the eyes, spots and tooth are all the same. So if I copy those 16 paint images and paste them in the next 2 sections just by pressing Ctrl V twice, they should cover the same positions for the cycle there. The only thing I want to change is where the eye closes. I don't need the same background. That's it, the Marpaint oil paintbrush, which is one I've used a few times myself, but can't seem to get as good results as you seem to do. I think I need to use the pressure a little more. This one here with the orange blob, I believe, is the one that you use, but plenty of brushes for us all to use in there. So here I'm going to create a new image. So let me just delete number 8, so there's a gap, and then in here I'll press undo. I want to duplicate that because I want to have the same position for the body. So I extend it by a frame and press D to duplicate. Now if I delete drawing 8, bring this back. In my duplicate, I can now delete the extra eye colour I've got. Angle and ratio to 0. Yes. If I select the eyes palette entry and tick selective, I only want to be deleting the areas, I should now be able to delete only the yellow. No, it's lines and areas. There we are. But because it is painted as the area brush, I've not got the grey underneath. So maybe drawing the body colour and the eye colour on a different level might have been better, but it's okay. So again, let's choose the paintbrush tool, and for the skin, I'll just paint that over like that. And then the next drawing, I don't need any eyes at all, so again, I'll extend drawing 9, excuse me, and in the second extended drawing I press D to duplicate it, delete drawing 9 and bring them back. And then I can just erase the eyes entirely. Yeah, the My Paint oil brush, let me check that in a second. Make sure I've been looking at the right one. And then go back to the skin and just paint in that gap. It's got to be on the brush tool. I don't know why I always forget that. There we go. And let me use the eraser and turn off selective. I can't change the hardness on this. I couldn't remember if I could. That's fine. Okay, let's take a quick look at the raster. Yeah, this one at the top right. Sort of to the right of the cursor there, I think is the one that you use normally. So that's digital knife smudging. No, it's not that one, is it? That's a smudging. Large watercolour fringe. Anyway, that's fine. Yeah, I know that you've changed the settings on that to make it work for you, so that's good. Okay, so I've taken those two colours off those eyes there. I need to extend, no, because it's moved, so I need to change drawing 10 to do the same. So again, I'll duplicate that drawing, delete drawing 10, and bring the other drawings back. And then we will erase that yellow. And then with a normal brush, I'll choose the skin colour and just paint over where the eyes were. And hit save. Yeah, there's quite a lot of mess under some of these images. I might tidy them up, possibly off the stream or maybe a little later on. We'll take a look. I like having a bit of mess coming out, but that's quite messy there. Yeah. So let's extend that to the end. Let me rewind to the beginning. Let me have a quick look at the outsides here. Before I do, actually, let me disappear again for 20 seconds. So I'll be right back. That's it. Okay, let's have a quick look at these outsides. I was talking about tidying these up possibly. I think I should. That's fine, just that little bit, just that little bit. It's one or two of these little blobs. It's a bit too much, I think. So let me take off some of them and not try and be too neat. If you turn off pencil mode, let's turn down the hardness a little bit. Make it a little bit bigger. Right, so it's a little bit softer at the edge and leaves some behind. Yeah. So how are we all doing today? The chat's gone a little bit quiet, which is fine. If you're working and doing what you need to do. Are you working right now, Dave, on some of Salt and Light? Yeah, this is a particularly messy one. Again, don't get too tied up with tidying this up. But some of these edges are really egregious and catch my eye, so I can't not. My tidiness won't let me, I'm afraid. But we've still got the fuzziness on the inside of his body, and I'm leaving some on the outside. And because I copy and pasted the colour level to the second and third cycles, I won't need to edit those because it is exactly the same drawings, or the fill of the drawings. Oh, Dave, I was thinking about you the other day again. Unfortunately, you for some reason I got Edwin in my head. You mentioned the Futurama project again, and all day at work all I heard was Edwin, and I try not to mess about with silly voices on the channel when I'm streaming or in the videos too much, but in my head all I can hear is Ed, and his very, very cartoony and recognisable voice, which you do a great version of. I have a little bit of a play, but you do a great version of him. Well, the Welshman's hot. It does get hot in Wales at times. Okay, almost there with these. Yeah, I think I might do, Amar. I might be reusing this fella again. So let me rewind. We've got all 48 images there in the cycle. Hit save and loop play. Have a little sip of tea while we do. So to say, having that texture on his body jumping around really reminds me of a few cartoons from a few years ago. So I was keen, as I say, in my mind, when I was thinking about how we're going to paint him, what colour we're going to do, I was really keen to have that textured look about him. Yeah, I really am. I wanted somebody, a character that I could redraw or use that had, say, a bit of movement about him, a bit of something about how he looks. Nothing too boring. So when you see walk cycle animations or walk cycle demos, often it's a plain humanoid, two-legged sort of character. And after seeing Tony's little monster animations, I really wanted my own monster kind of thing. And he's nothing like Bean. Absolutely nothing like Bean, even though he's bean shaped and looks exactly like Bean. But yeah, it looks good. Yeah, it does. It does absolutely, Amar. It does look more, possibly more like he's waving than having a scratch. Yeah. Right. Excellent. That's the paint section done. So let me again. I've saved it last time. Let me take a backup copy. So with colour, make a copy. In the backups folder, we can see all the backups it's made each time I hit save, which is quite a few times. So let me delete all non-named backups. So it gets rid of everything I've not named, so I can see each stage of process. And then go on to the next section. Suhas, welcome. No problem at all. Yeah, absolutely. You listen to your mother. You've got to keep up with your homework. The last thing I'd want is for you watching the stream and falling behind. So that's fine, no problem at all. Good to have you with us. So what's the plan for the next section is I wanted to do a bit of a background. And I don't want to do anything too complex. Yeah, as a pretty simple background just to show where the ground is and have kind of a sky. So this is where I'll be doing a little bit of painting in a bad way, not trying to do anything too detailed, just to show the sort of the two units. So let's add in a Toonz raster level. I could add in a vector level, but everything else is a bit rough, so let's make this a little bit rough too. So let's name the column, first thing to do. Let's extend that drawing to the end because it's not going to animate. Hit save, so we've got a good position saved. Right click, fit to window, just to set the scale of the whole screen there. And then we're going to add a palette entry. And because this drawing lasts for the whole animation, I don't need to use the timeline at all. So to give me some more space, I'm going to my new room that I've called large drawing, just to give me more space to draw in here. So let's change the size of the palette to the list view. That's much easier to work with. I'm thinking of a sort of nature scene. I just want to kind of like grass at the bottom, sky at the top, just to get something behind him, and we can come back later and always improve on that. But with him, he was originally a pencil sketch, so having him kind of on a plain white sheet of paper, plain white screen was fine. You could even add some basic sketches in the background, but now I've added colour for him, I wanted to definitely add some colour for the background. So let me throw some colour down first. One of these brushes was talking to Dave earlier about it. It wasn't the knife. Let's look at this one. Large, thin, that'd be a medium I guess. Glazing and thin glazing. I'm not sure which the oil brush you used, Dave, but sort of doesn't really matter. But I just can't remember, so I was just sort of intrigued. What about that one? Watercolour. Let me try that. So let me pick a colour then. Sort of a green, but not too bright. Choose the brush there. Make this larger. Not sure if watercolour is necessarily the right thing, so you can get this smearing effect. Let me just give it a second to have a play. I say this to you all the time, just have a play, just give things a go, see what happens. I don't want it solid colour anyway, I want it sort of with some texture to it. That's fine. Hit save. Did I? Okay. So I like the way that the brush you've used adds that texture, adds a not just having a flat colour. And then again, let's name this to be green grass, just so it catches my eye with a nice, easy to remember name. This one is going to be sky, and I might add some other things later. I don't want to take too long on this, so happy just to sort of throw some colour down to get some background. Digital. Oh, so it was a knife smudging. Yes. With you mentioning oil, I was looking for a name with oil in it. Okay, I think there's that one with the blue digital knife. Yeah, it is that one with the large orange blob, for want of a better word. So a bit of a blue sky. Again, sort of paler colours, not bright colours. That's a larger size. Yeah, we come down to a smaller size, it might cope better. She kind of got this overlapping colour thing, which I like. And here you can see where you can see through the monster. So I need to add that background behind him, which I'll do in a second. That's fine. Let me just go over that a little bit to clear up some of the lines in there. No, the performance really isn't in there for some of these brushes. It struggles to keep up. Even if you've got no animation in there, if your first drawing uses a My Paint brush, it still sometimes struggles to keep up with you. Yeah, and I think you're right, Amar. Using standard raster is quite good, especially for sort of background images, because you can just change the colour and throw a different colour down, change the colour, throw it down, and not have to worry about creating a new palette entry all the time. So let me come back here, select the same brush, come back to the colour, and now create a slightly lighter version. So I'll throw over the top. Down here. And I will throw a couple of clouds over just because they're fun. So let's add another one, call it clouds. Let's try the clouds brush as well from the raster list. That's in one of the new brushes. There are two cloud brushes. If I go towards the bottom, in the special effects section somewhere, I know there's a cloud brush there, FX clouds. If I choose a white colour, if I paint this on first, let's bring it back to 0, which is where it's best to use it. Okay, Mar, thank you. Yeah. So that's not at all going well there. Because I've got some colour underneath it. It's just struggling to keep up. Let me just see if I can make things go a bit better. One thing I can try and do that helped before, if I hid my camera, I noticed that my resources, less of my resources for my GPU were being used. So on my screen, because of some recent issues, I've got my task manager, and my GPU goes to 98 or 99% as I'm working in OpenToonz with my camera on the screen. So it's doing very little really, although I've got a green screen behind me, so it's working through that. If I turn it off, right now it's on about 50% GPU. So it's kind of good to take the camera off now and again to get some better pacing, just while I'm streaming. When I'm working without streaming, GPU doesn't go above 30–40% normally. That's interesting. I'm just reading the comment from Dave there about adding custom brushes on a separate page in the palette. They appear in new scenes even if you switch projects. Because normally when you start a new project, you won't have any colours from previous scenes. Okay, so let me try again with this cloud brush, see if it will go at all. Yeah, I think it's struggling. So let me come over here. I'm going to create a new raster level, that one, a standard raster level. and in here I'm going to add that cloud brush. Now it's annoying for me actually mentioning brushes and scenes and where they're stored and when they're available. If you create a new raster level, you get the same raster palette for every level, and I prefer to get one for each level, because if you've created say 10 or 11 colours in one raster level, you create a new raster level for something totally different, you don't necessarily want to share those colours. I'm just catching up on the chat there. Yes, there's a few, Amar. I was going to try a few different ones, which is why I thought I'd go to a different level here. So this is going to be Clouds 1. And I just want to see how well they work and for you to see how well they work as well. So this is the Clouds brush here towards the bottom of the raster list. So let's try again. Right, so that sort of creates dots that you can overlay, and it creates kind of a fluffy cloud here. It's not too bad there. So that's the first brush. The second brush is the very top. It's in the new section of brushes with 1.5, and it's called Clouds here at the left hand side. So that's the second brush. So let me call that Clouds 2. Let's start at the left, and that doesn't quite add the same clouds in the same way with circles, but it still builds them up with lots of small pieces of the shape of the brush kind of thing. So that looks quite nice. I like that. Less airbrushy. The first one was kind of airbrushed around the edge. And let me do literally the airbrush as you mentioned, Amar. Let me come down a couple of screens, and here at the right hand side is the airbrush itself. So if I use that one, and that's the airbrush, and again using the colour white, it starts off quite large. Let's make that smaller again, and let's just try it over here, and that sort of allows you to create kind of this fluffy lighter colour for your clouds. So it depends exactly what you're after, but all three have got their options. I quite like the new brush at the top of the list called Clouds here. So the fourth row down on the left, and that's one I used at the top left. But you've got lots of options, so it depends exactly what you're after seeing. So now I've got the basics of the clouds in using white. You can then go in and change the colour to be more of a grey colour, and then add in that highlight that you sometimes get to create the depth on the clouds, if that's what you're after. So let me undo that and leave it there and hit save. How did I know you was going to say that, Dave? I know you're a big fan of Krita and drawing clouds and painting in Krita in general, or Krita. Yeah, absolutely. The cloud brush in Krita and the brushes in general in Krita are really top notch. But for quick and dirty clouds, they're not too bad with the My Paint brushes. Okay, let me go back to the drawing room. Everything's saved there. And let me change the background to put it behind the colour of the character. That's good. Let me extend the clouds layer to go across the full length. Let's name that up so don't forget which one it is. Bring that down to the bottom so the backgrounds are now both together. And now we can see that you can see through to the sky with the blue on the character there. So let me create that raster level that I was talking about. Sorry, the vector level to sit behind the character so that we can make sure that you can't see through to the background. So let me create a new brush. I hate using the first two brushes purely because you can't delete them. The first one is the transparent brush, and as I mentioned the other day, Dave, you accidentally pressed the number 1 key, which made the colour wheel disappear because it chose the transparent brush. it always disappears because you can't edit that. Number 2 is the inking brush, but you can't delete that, which is really not useful because sometimes you want to be able to delete the lines you've drawn. So I always try and create a new brush for any drawing I do. I'm going to choose the white colour. I'm in the brush tool. I'm on the vector level. It's because I'm not in Tahoma. I'm in OpenToonz, so I haven't got the autofill. That's annoying. I could just draw the line and fill it in myself anyway, I guess. Won't do any harm. It's quite a quick thing. So yeah, so the colour entries, you can use the keyboard shortcuts, the number keys, to switch between them. So pressing 1 goes to the first one, 2 for the next, 3 for the next. And it's only the first 10 colours that you can choose between. But yeah, that's a handy shortcut for that. Let me see if I can change this down to size of 1, make it really accurate, really smooth, and try and fill it in, see how it looks, or figure out if I'm wasting my time trying to do this. Yeah, that's with it filled. So if I bring it to the front, and do that, try deleting that and try and add it again. Brush tool, it's on full smooth, full accuracy, size of 1. So now if I try again and draw around, it's just going really slow. Because I increased the smoothing, so it's smoothing around, which gave me that oval. There we go. So let's just see if this will work or not. And then bring that behind the colour. So now you kind of got white behind the character rather than the colour of the sky. Maybe. Possibly. It's just C can be, yeah, C will be a lot of editing, but at least it will be a filled shape. The easiest way is to go over to Tahoma, you know, rather than OpenToonz, to use the autofill, auto close, autofill. So you get the auto close option definitely. But if I go to the second drawing, let me try that. I'll add an ellipse. And it won't let you add it until you add a drawing. So if I press Alt D to add a new drawing, make it visible. There we are. Change the size to be 1. Yes, that's right, fewer vector nodes. So I can change the base of this to fit there. Let me bring that to the front. Name the column so I know what I've got here. So it's the monster white background. Because to be honest, actually, I did sort of trace over the outside of the monster, so they should all be roughly the same size. So I can just copy and paste it, I expect. So let me delete that one, because that'll, as you say, have more nodes in it. Let me edit this one with the control point editor tool, or by pressing the letter C. I'll click on it, and let's place a few of these points in the right place and see if we can get this looking right without too much messing about. If I right click on a point and choose non-linear, no, if I press the Alt key, as I'm dragging a point, I can drag them independent from each other. So I can set the bottom one there and then click and drag the top one to go at a different angle. So Alt again and click the bottom one to connect the side. Let's move this top point, Alt and move the top one to go around the head. And now I've already pressed Alt once, I don't need to press it again to change the next one. then pressing the Control key, I can click to add a new point to go around that curve there. Again, pressing Alt to adjust where that curve is, and then pressing Control, add a new point, place it on, and now I should be able to adjust these points to fit around the shape. It's quite a very simple shape, like that. And if I press F to fill and fill that in, I can now see where I've gone outside. So I'll press C to choose the control point editor, click the edge again, and then I can see that line is too long, so let's bring that back inside there. And this is only covering up the background behind where I've added paint, so it shouldn't be needed in all the places. It's not like the character is going to be coloured in with this one colour. When I place it behind the paint, if I move that column behind, it's just to fill in the gaps, so it doesn't need to be super duper accurate. So let me just adjust these two. That'll be fine. And then I press S to change to the selection tool when that's done. I press save first so I don't lose anything. Select on that shape, Control C to copy, and then Control V to paste it in drawing 1. And then just position that over the character. And we can adjust them independently if we need them to be different for each one, but they should be roughly the same. Okay, and now I want to create a new image for the first 8 drawings, because that's repeated for the walking up and down. So I'll highlight the next 6 blank frames and press D to duplicate. So I'll get a duplicate drawing, 6 duplicate drawings of that previous image from number 2, and I can use the selection tool to click on it and position it using the arrow keys in the right place. And if I want to move it more finely, I can press Control and the arrow keys, and then go to the next drawing, click to select with the selection tool, arrow keys and Control arrow keys until the white is roughly in the right place. And like I say, I need to adjust them individually, but that's only for the first 8 drawings, and then they should be copied for the rest. So yeah, great tip there, Dave, to use the initial shape first. So I'll just position these, and I'm looking really at the bottom curve, and I'll adjust the top separately. And then number 8. And this just gives a bit of a background, the paler background behind the monster. So let me go to the top of the character and look at each frame using the control point editor. If necessary, I'll adjust them to fit a bit better. And then again, the arrow keys to move to the next frame, adjust them to fit better. Arrow key, that's quite a long way out. And that's just my drawing or tracing ability to get that in the right place or not. But now the rough shape is there, it's a lot easier to adjust this single shape. Yeah, that's fine. And again, let's move this up just to get up to the edges. And number 8, bring that out there, and that's fine to do that. Hit save, and now if I highlight those 8 drawings, press Ctrl C, move to frame 9, I can press Ctrl V a number of times to put them in the right place, to paste them there for each of those steps. So now if I zoom out, go to the first frame and hit play, fit to window, I can see the white coming out in one place, but everything else isn't too bad. So let's scrub through one frame at a time and adjust any tiny pieces that need to be adjusted. That one needs to change, so drawing number 1 there is slightly different. So C for the control point editor, click on it, zoom in so we can adjust it more accurately, and just bring the light inside the line. Here we go. So I don't see the white there. And again for this one, bring it inside the line, just to take that little white edging away. Hit save, let's take a look at that. Okay, I'm happy with that. So that's him fully coloured in with a background. So again, let me take a backup of that. So with BG and colour. Make a copy, delete the non-name backups. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to do was, instead of him walking on the spot, I was going to show how I might make him walk across the screen. So I'll be doing that, taking a short break first and doing that after the break. But just before I do, I want to show something different in the kitchen. So if you give me 1 second, and I'll just change what's down there on the walls of the kitchen, which won't take long to do. I've already set this up earlier. So instead of having some static drawings, I've got a couple of walk cycles from last week to show. Which hopefully they will show, but if not, then we might have to share them another time. So let me just adjust them 1 second. Okay, so they'll either show or they won't. We'll take a look at that. But either way, I'll be back in about 5 minutes, so I'll see you after this break. Welcome back. So I've stretched my legs, I've got a fresh drink, I'm ready for the final stretch now. So all I want to do is have the character walking across from the left to the right hand side of the screen. And I've got 3 ways I want to show to do that, 2 very similar, but I thought I'd share them today to share my thoughts and see if you find some of them useful. If you've got any ideas for names for this character, by the way, I think you're absolutely right, Amar, we do need a name for him. So if you have any thoughts for a name for him, then drop them in the chat, or if you're watching this on repeat, down in the description in the comments below. Eric's just tasting some black tea with black pepper and cinnamon. Oh, that's fancy. I've just got some plain Yorkshire tea. Lovely. Also, I noticed while I was gone that Tom has been working on his little walking character, Buttman, for want of a better name for now. So I see you've got your tail moving as well with it, and the hair starting to move as he goes. He's a fun looking character, I like him. Thanks for sharing that, Tom. Looking forward to the next stage. That's right, there is a save palette option. If you've not checked already, Full Chain, in the online manual, it's worth taking a look at in there. If you search in there for palettes or managing palettes, there's some details in there about using project palettes. So for instance, I looked a little bit at this, but not in a great detail. Something I'll need to do later as I work on larger projects, and something I've spoke about a little bit with Dave for sharing palettes. If you go to Studio Palette, I believe it is that right? Yep. The Studio Palette window, you can then have a set of global palettes that you can share between projects, which are some basic colours or groups of colours that you might find useful. And then project palettes. So you could create yourself a project palette or palette specific to a project. And then you can use this palette in your current project. So you can click and drag the palette into your palette list and drop it there. That's what this button is at the bottom left. So you can click and drag that palette, as it says there, into the Studio Palette window. So if you've got a good palette of colours here, if I double click on the tab for instance, I can rename this to be Monster Colours, for want of a better name. And now if I drag the button at the bottom left, I can drop that into the Project Palettes folder, and that's now available, as you can see here, Monster Colours, to use in other projects. So that's another way you can share projects around, palettes around between scenes and projects. And then again, at the top left, you can click and drag, I believe, that. No, that's just the one tab. So it is the entry in the project palettes, to drag and drop that back into your palette list for the current scene. So you can do quite a few things to share palettes between projects, and also you can right click, I believe, and link them together. So if you've copied a palette entry, either a single colour or a collection of them, you can then right click and keep them in sync, so the next time you load that project it takes the new shared colour. So you can have a bit of a play with that. But personally I've not really worked with them too much, but it's worth taking a look in the manual and having a play, see what works for you. But as you say, you can just save the palette itself on disk somewhere and reload it sort of manually if you want to. Is there a way to fill an area with a texture in a raster level? I've not really found a way, apart from applying a texture to a column and then using a matte in effect to matte it to your object. That's the only thing I've done. And in fact I did that over here in the study to apply texture to the back of the shelves and the doors here. If you look closely and make it full screen, you'll see there's a wooden texture on all of the wood in the room, and that's by creating a texture in a column and then I used, I think, a matte in or a similar effect to merge that texture with the colour of the wood there. So that's one way you can do it, but it's not ideal compared to, as you say, just filling an area. Okay, so let's make this little monster, whatever his name is, move across the screen from left to right. Yeah, that's good, Full Chain. Good. I'm glad you found something that does work. But yeah, take a look at the sharing the palettes and using the project palettes. Just another feature of the program, and there's so many features in here that a lot of us don't use that's available to be used. So finding out as much as you can really improve your workflow. And as Eric says, it's got everything, but it still feels like it's lacking some core features. So it still feels like if only it could do this or that. But there are usually workarounds and ways you can get it to do what you want it to do. Okay, so let's move this fella across the screen. So if I zoom out, so I said there was 3 ways to do this. It's kind of really only 2. If I show you the simple way first that I had in mind, we want to move the monster as one solid unit. So we've got a couple of choices here, because we want to apply animation effects. Let's catch up on the chat from Dave there. Yeah, absolutely. Data management. This is where you need to experiment a little bit with different projects to figure out the best way, the best workflow for you to be able to share palettes. I know the other day, Dave, yesterday, day before, he was looking at the colours for different scenes, because you've got different colours on Tianara's mum for the headdress. So sharing palettes could be useful, possibly for your project. You seem to cope pretty well without it, but it could be a way to go. Yeah. Okay, so we want to be able to apply movement with the animation tool, but we don't want to put the movement on all the different columns. So you want to move all the columns as one unit. So you can either collapse the columns into a sub-X sheet, so you will then see a single column of the sub-X sheet on the main timeline and animate that, or you can link the columns together through the schematic, and I think I'll do the second one for this occasion because I want to potentially add more repeating cycles with the frames and edit them more. So let me first, I will collapse the backgrounds together. So I'm going to delete all but the first frame, because where possible I like to have just unique drawings in a sub-X sheet. It makes the main timeline easier to manage. So if I click and drag over the column headers and then right click and choose collapse, that's now collapsed the background into a single column for a sub-X sheet, and I can then drag that one column, the one drawing or the one frame, to last as long as I like. Whereas if I'd left, say, 48 frames in those 2 columns, when I collapse them, it would show 48 unique numbers across this main timeline, but there's only one drawing, which is why I like to store just one drawing in the sub-X sheet like that. So that I can see it's only drawing 1 and not 48 unique drawings. Absolutely, Dave, yeah. And this is where working out the best workflow for you is the best thing to do, depending on how you like to work. And the simple case of just copying and pasting a bunch of palette entries is often just enough. It works, it's simple, it's an easy way to do it. Hi there, Maria. I can see you just shared a comment in the Discord chat. I'm guessing you're not watching the stream at the minute, but if you do catch this later, we are missing you this week. Hope the play's going really well, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Okay, so let me connect all of these columns together. So on the schematic, we want to go to the stage schematic. I'll take away the numbers and show the dots, the connection points, because we're not connecting them in a clever way using the plastic tool or hooks or anything. So I'm going to adjust the main monster level, and when I move that, I want the colour to move with it, and I want the monster background to move with it as well. So now I could just apply the animation effects, the animation movements, to the one column. So back on the drawing level, I go to the monster walk column, and let me just have a little think about the best way to do this to demonstrate the 3 techniques. I'm thinking I want to copy this 3 times. So I'll copy the column. No, I will do it in scenes. So we'll duplicate the scene later. So we'll just do everything in this one scene. So frame 1, choose the animate tool. I'm happy with the height position, so I'm going to lock the Y axis so I can't accidentally move him up and down, and then I can click and drag to move him all the way to the left off the screen, and then on the final frame I'm going to drag him all the way to the right off the screen the other side. And I know this isn't correct, we need him to last for longer, but the idea is that because we already calculated the walk cycle, that he looks like he's walking on a treadmill and his feet are moving the same pace on each frame, on each new drawing, we can just move him across the screen, and if we've got the timing right, he will appear to just walk across the screen with his foot planted in place and staying in place. So for a simple walk cycle, this is a quick way to get him to move across the screen, even with the occasional foot slide and him not quite fitting right. And if you watch some cheaper cartoons or some children's cartoons, you often see walk cycles where the feet are slipping as the character walks, because it's been made in a quicker, cheaper way. But many times that's perfectly good enough. So let's just take a look through some of these and look at the feet. So his feet there is slipping backwards a little bit and slipping a bit there. In fact, it's sliding forward, and that's because I didn't set my interpolation. So let me delete both those keys, because I bet there was ease in and ease out, or speed in and speed out is my preferred one. So go to File, Preferences, from the Animation section, change the default interpolation to be linear, and then it'll move the character the same amount for every frame. Yeah, exactly, it can look fine. It's only for people like us that look at cartoons, sometimes overlook at them too closely and we spot these small things. For viewers watching, especially younger viewers, they really won't notice. So again, frame 1, undo, click into the monster walk column on frame 1, drag him off the screen. In the final frame, put him at the right hand side off the screen, and then we slowly walk through. Hit save. We click and drag the slider under the viewer is a nice way to take a look at an animation. Yeah, he's sliding forward. You can see it's kind of like he's ice skating. His foot goes down and he moves forward. So we need to take longer for the movement. So I need to move this key more to the right. So if we take it one cycle at a time, and this is one of the reasons why I adjusted the blocks between these lines on the timeline, so I can see each of these lines is a full cycle. So when I copy and paste, I can copy a full cycle at a time. So let's see how that looks. Still sliding a little bit, but less so. So again, let's click on the key and drag it to the right by 8 frames, is what I'm doing there, which is one of the cycles. Still going, but almost there. So again, I'll drag another 8, and we just keep adjusting it piece by piece until it seems to look about right. So you can see a little bit of movement there. I think it's still going sliding a little bit, so let me adjust it one more. Okay, and I didn't actually draw the walk cycle with this in mind, so it still could be a little bit off, but this is again a quick way to create the walk cycle. And I'll show you a slightly more detailed way in a minute. So we now decide how we want the cycle to look. So if you remember, the first 16 drawings are a plain cycle with him walking. The next, he walks and blinks in the middle, just to add a difference. And the third one is he reaches up to either wave or scratch his head, depending how you look at it. So I'm happy to only show that one once. So we need another cycle at the end. So let's take the blink again. So the second section, now click and drag over those 16 drawings in all 3 columns. Control C to copy, go to the blank frame afterwards, Control V to paste. And there's a little bit more animation needed at the end there. So we'll go back to the beginning and copy the first 16 of just the walk here. If we can do it without clicking on the key, so let's go from the bottom, and that's the walk cycle there. Go to the end and paste. Might need to do it from the top. Yeah, that's fine. I need a few more frames. Let me just paste again. We can always adjust which of those groups of 16 we use. And let's extend the background to the end. Absolutely, Eric. Absolutely. If you intend your character to walk to the right, you want to ideally draw the cycle with him actually moving across the screen and walking rather than being on the spot. Otherwise you will get this little foot slide where it moves around. So let's see how that looks. So again, unless you're staring at the feet, that seems to fit quite well. You just put the end of the playhead here, so the stop marker. Let me show the camera only, hit save so don't lose anything, and hit loop play. So it's a very determined little monster there. You can't use the cyclic feature to loop drawings though, Amar, only animation keys, unfortunately. It's a shame, it'd be nice if you could use that option. But you have to copy and paste them to have them looping. But you're right about using a sub X sheet. I was thinking that as I was changing things, I am going to use a sub X sheet, just so I can show the 3 different techniques in an easier way, I think. So this one is perfect for a sub X sheet, so I will do that now. So I'll click and drag over all 3 drawings, then I'll right click and choose collapse. Undo, I must have missed one of them. So click and drag over all 3, right click and collapse. No, it didn't like that. In that case I'm going to leave that there. Yeah, if I move to the end of here, look Amar, and go to the right hand side, the cyclic option is on the animation key. So I can press that, which means that when the character gets to the right, it'll cycle again to start from the left. But the drawings don't change. You've got to set them up yourself. So let's turn that off. Okay, so that's a simple way of getting them walking across the screen with an on-the-spot walk cycle. But as I say, you can see the foot sliding a little bit if you look carefully. It sort of wobbles a bit on the ground. both of them do. But it's not too bad. It's pretty good, I think, for most situations. Possibly cycling the background. It'll give the background a bit of a wobble as well. Potentially. I won't do that today because I want to do this cycling for the walking today. Absolutely, Dave. The anime guys, they do from the waist upwards, just doing that, as I did with Vespar on the scene that I sent to you. It was just a little bob with a change in the size of the character, so I increased the animation size. Or at least I animated the zoom. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. It's getting late. I've been going for a while now. So I just wanted to show the last thing of how to stop the feet from wobbling so much, and that's to manually set them up. So I'm going to hide all three of these columns first of the monster. Then I'm going to duplicate them. By just pressing Control C, Control V. And let's put them together like that and show the three new ones. Delete the animation keys there. Let me hit save and make sure I've got a backup of that. For the first walk across the screen, make a copy, delete all non-named, minimize. Tenpence. Yes, no problem. Yeah, the colour boiling on the character, that was a lot of fun. I'm really pleased with how that came out. That came out really nicely. Suhas, no problem. Bye for now. I'm finishing off with myself in about half an hour or so. So we're just winding down now. Have a good night and I'll speak to you next time. Yeah, that's right, Eric. Yeah, but sometimes reducing the cost is what you need to do. Otherwise, you just wouldn't get the animation out, I think. And for most of us one-man bands trying to create animation, we need to reduce the cost where we can. Okay, let me rename these columns so as I know which are which. Monster Walk 2, Colour 2, and then the white background 2. Hit save. We check in the schematic they're all connected together. Yeah, they're still connected. The copies that I made aren't, so I will connect those so I don't forget later. Okay, so the alternative is to manually adjust the position of each of these, the positions of the feet. I thought I deleted those keys, maybe I pressed undo at some point. Okay, so to do that, what you do is select the Animate tool, zoom in close, choose the position, add a key for the first position. So I'm only changing the X, so I will click into the X column, X box, and press enter, which adds a key only for the X value, not for all the values. And then go to drawing 2, turn on the onion skin, zoom in, and then adjust that drawing so that the foot that's planted on the floor stays in the same position on the next drawing, and keep doing that to move the character to the right. Hopefully if you've drawn him accurately enough, the feet are all at the same height, so you shouldn't have to adjust the height. And just adjust the position left and right to get him actually moving to the right hand side. And I'll do this just for the first cycle. So now the heel's coming up, so we need to align up the toes so that you can see the character there lifting his toe up. and the toe shouldn't move position. And again, flicking through the drawings to make sure that he doesn't slide around. And because the heel has just come to the ground for the front foot, that needs to go to the right. I'm just looking where the rear leg is, so you've still got the same movement coming forward. So I think that needs to be touching the ground there still, and then back to the beginning again. So do this through the 16 frames, so that's once for each foot. And it's the heel I'm looking at really, so if I do have a change in size of the foot, it's the toe that's adjusting, and you can then go back later and edit the length of the foot if necessary. So the heel is a good part of the body to look at. So drawing 15, we're only going to 16, again looking at the toes here. And I could do with adjusting the height because they're not quite right, but that's okay, I think, as it is. So that's 16 drawings done. I'll then delete the rest of the drawings by highlighting the following one in all 3 columns, tapping delete, and I can click on the bar at the top of each of those levels and it'll delete all connecting drawings. So now I've got 16 drawings, hopefully with the character moving to the right. And then if this works, because it did a second ago, I'll highlight all 3 columns, I'll right click and choose collapse. Okay, so that's now collapsed. So this is then the, let's give this a name of a, I'll just call it the walk cycle, to be honest. As long as you recognise what the name's called, that's fine. So if I zoom out slightly, you'll see him walking across the screen for 1 step. So then all you need to do is click on the top bar to highlight all 16 frames, or you can simply click across the 16, Control C and then Control V. So we've copied that loop, and then we animate them in groups of 16. So use the Animate tool, position the column at the far left of the screen. You'll see him take a walk into the screen up to frame 16, and then when it repeats to frame 1, you need to position that after frame 16. So we can either add a key here by clicking in the X area and pressing enter, or if you go to the File Preferences, change the animation type to be constant. Now it won't interpolate between the keys as they change from key to key. So if I delete the last key, now on drawing number 1, if I choose the onion skin for drawing 16 or frame 16, on drawing 1 I can now move that across. So there's now a key on frame 1. That doesn't interpolate, so you've still got the same movement across the screen that you've placed in those 16 drawings. And then frame 17, you just need to position the start of the next 16 frame cycle where he moves across. And then again, we copy those drawings, 1 to 16, copy, paste, paste, and we'll paste them in up to the end of the screen, because we know the length roughly of how long it should take, about 89 frames, because that's what we've already created there. So you just need to go to frame 1, drawing 1 of the sub X sheet, and then align the drawing to follow on from the previous frame 16 from the sub X sheet, like that. So then we'll go across again to frame 1, bring that over. So you've got the walk cycle of 16 frames where he moves across the screen, and then you just have to position it for each following set of 16. And if you've actually drawn your walk cycle where your character moves across the screen for each step, you could do this already because you've already got those 16 positions or the number of positions where the character moves. So it's just a matter of positioning them after each complete step. So I've turned off the onion skin. Let's fit to window and then hit loop play on that. Turn on the camera view. You'll now see his feet are now planting more solidly on the ground. Yeah, you're guaranteed to have no sliding. So it depends if you want to draw your cycle walking on the spot. But if you know you're going to have your character walking across the screen, then draw them walking across the screen for that first step of the cycle, and then animate every 16 frames or every complete step to have them planting solidly across the screen. So I hope that makes some sense of how you can do that. And I said there was 3 ways to do the walking across the screen. The first one I've showed you is a key at the far left of the screen. No, it's that way around, I'm not mirrored. And then an animation key at the far right to state the positions of where your character is. Then adjust the timing to make it last longer or shorter to give your character a chance to walk across, but you can get some sliding. The second method is what we've just done here, to use the Animate tool to create a 16 frame section where your character actually moves a complete step, and then you animate every complete step to have them moving across the screen. And the third way is that instead of animating in your sub X sheet, so let's open that up, where I've got a key on each drawing here, where I've moved them across, the alternative way is to use the selection tool instead, and then to highlight your character and move them across physically in each frame to have them moving in that 16 frame cycle. So that's the equivalent of changing a walk on the spot walk cycle to be a physical walk across the screen for the 16 frames complete step within here. But then once you come out, you still need to add the keys every 16 frames to have them walk across the screen. So I hope that helps. So do get out there and create your own walk cycles, walking on the spot and walking across the screen. And I think what I'll do next is I will very quickly have the character walking left and right so that you can see an actual cycle of the walk. So they don't walk off the right hand side of the screen and then appear on the left again, but they walk left to right, then right to left. And we can do that fairly easily, I think, by again using sub X sheets. And I'll just do this and then we'll call that a day and I'll end the stream there. So because I know in my mind what I'm going to do, I'm going to add another couple of cycles here. So 1 to 16, I'm going to highlight those drawings, Control C, paste, and then paste again. I'm going to use the Animate tool, go to drawing 1, turn on the onion skin, zoom in, and place the character's feet following on there. And again, frame 1, move that over there. Great. Back to the beginning. So what I can do, let's hit save. If I click on the column header and right click and choose collapse, even though there's only one column, it was a column with animation keys. So let's step into that. There we go, a single column with those animation keys. If I zoom out, you can see them there. And this is a good way to put your keys and drawings together to collapse them into kind of a single unit. So now, because they're collapsed, if I go to the main timeline, there's no keys here, but I've still got that keyed movement where he moves across the screen. Excellent, Dave. Great. Yeah, no problem at all. If you want to create yourself, if you haven't already, the YouTube stream, what do you call it, YouTube stream. So you've got a URL. I'll share that on the Discord server when I finish here in about 10 minutes or so. So hopefully I'll catch you for that. Okay, Animation Overload, thanks for coming today, and we'll see you next time. Okay, so I've got the character walking left to right here. I'm going to double click on the column, rename it left to right. I'm going to then select on the column, press Ctrl C, Ctrl V. I've now duplicated it. Let's zoom out a little bit so we can see that. So I've got the animation of him going left to right, which will end around there. So I'll delete a bunch of those drawings. And now click and drag the top column, start a few frames after the first. Let's bring the background higher so we can see them all together. I'll extend the background out. Yeah, great, thanks Dave, I'll keep an eye out for that in a second. I'll then come to the first frame, and what I want to do is change it so the character walks from right to left. So there's a couple of things I need to do for that. Oh, excellent, Amar. Look forward to seeing those. If we go to the scale, that's right, if we change the scale to be the H scale minus 100, that has the effect of flipping the whole animation for that column in reverse, so that when he walks left to right, it's flipped, so it's right to left. I also want to change the global scale to make him a little bit smaller, and you can do that in lots of different ways. One way I like to do... Hey there Travis, good to have you with us. No problem at all. Great, thanks Blended, I'll take a look at that. Mr. Planet, as somebody called you the other day. Yeah, one thing I like to do, on the options toolbar, where you've got the label for each item you can change, if you click on the label itself and then drag, you can adjust that value. So you haven't got to type in the number and you haven't got to click on screen. So you can just go larger and smaller by adjusting that value there. So let's change the position so he starts off screen. Let's check where he ends up. So he's all the way over there. So we can go even smaller. So again, changing the scale. It's on 84. Let's bring it down a bit. It's quite tidy there. That's good. Tennessee. Well, welcome. Good to have you with us. So he gets to the right there. So for clarity, so we can see what we're doing, let's delete some of these drawings we're not using. So he disappears off the screen. Then a few frames later, I want him appearing on the left. So let's reduce the background, apart from a few frames overlap. Drag the end play marker up to the end here. Rewind to the beginning, show the camera view, fit to window, and hit loop play. So now the monitor should walk from left to right. And this is only using that 16 frame cycle of the original walk, not the other two cycles I did. And then from right to left, but slightly smaller in the distance. So now we've got him walking in a circle in an actual cycle. So that's one way you can create these walk cycles going across the screen, and a few tips about using the animation tool to reverse what you can see there. He needs to move slightly further down because I can see he steps above where the ground is and walks into the sky, which is pretty clever. So I'll change that as well. And I'll change it to use the other animations that were created for the walk cycle. So where he's blinking and scratching his head. I'll add those in, and I'll post this up later on the Discord server in the animation section, so you'll get to see that. So it's a good way to create a quick animation. I'll tell you what we can do. If I move the first frame down, so change the position, lock the X, unlock the Y, and then just bring the first column down to here, and then the next column, I can now bring him down to here. But I need to bring him further back so he starts off screen. Let's just check that he doesn't go up and down. Yep, he stays on the ground and he disappears off the edge. So I will move that to the right a little bit to give him a few more frames before he comes in. Let's check the end, and I want to move the background to give him a few frames before he comes in the opposite side, and then the playhead up to the end there. So again, let's see the camera view and loop play. Yeah, so I'll add those extra animations into there, and I'll reshare that in a short while. I'll share it on Twitter and on Discord so you can take a look. But that's about it for today. So unless there's any last minute questions, we'll leave it here for today's stream. As you may have seen in the chat, Dave from Blender Planet is about to stream in about 20 minutes or so, and I'll share the link for that in my Discord server. I'll see if I can share it over here on YouTube. Sometimes it lets you share links, sometimes not. So I'll take a look at that now to see if I can. And I'll be over there in a short while to join him as well. So if you can go over there to see it, it'd be great to have you over there. He's currently working on a new cartoon series, a 12-episode series. It's almost completed 2 episodes, and he's just working through fixing up some of the animation and some of the art to keep consistency, and because he's improved over the past number of months since he started the project. So he's working on that right now. So if you want to see how he's going to do that using Tahoma, which is a forked branch of OpenToonz, then join me over there. So let me see if I can just share that link for you. So that's in 20 minutes exactly. So let me see if that'll go. So hopefully you can see that link, and if you click on that you will see a countdown of when his stream will begin. But that's all for now. If you missed anything on today's stream, you can see it on YouTube. The whole stream is being recorded, so you can see it on there. We did get cut off partway through, so it's in 2 pieces. But that's it for today. So I'll be back next weekend to do some more animation, and I hope you can join me then. But for now, that's it, and I'll see you next Sunday. And that's a Darren Tea. Have you always wanted to animate but didn't know how to start, and software seemed expensive and difficult to use? Well, with OpenToonz, it's free, powerful, and once you know how, it's easy to use. And it's my mission to get you animating with it today. Hi, my name's Darren, and I've been teaching OpenToonz for the past 3 years, showing thousands of students just like you how easy it is to animate with, and cutting through the jargon to show that anyone can animate with it. And by the end of the course, you'll be able to animate traditionally using OpenToonz. And the course is designed for students brand new to OpenToonz, as well as those new to animation. So take a look at the free lessons I've offered below, and then why not sign up and join me animating traditionally with OpenToonz.